up the great work.
Thank you, guys. You hear that?
Keep up the great work.
Keep up the great work.
Let's bring it home.
Let's bring it home.
The pleb.
The pleb. Ladies and gentlemen, the pleb is back. In this report, we have explosive details on the Toronto plane crash from the other day, where many suspected that DEI was involved, and those suspicions are looking to be right. Also tonight, Pierre Poilievre hosted a press conference today where he only took questions from independent media, and in this press conference, finally addressed the embarrassing situation here in Canada where Canadians are booing the US national anthem. You won't want to miss this report. Stick around. Before we start this report, if you're not subscribed, please smash the subscribe button, because on this channel, we make fun of wokeness and the left. All right, guys, it is good to finally be back. Let's rock and roll and get into today's news. Tonight's first story will be about this horrific plane crash that happened the other day in Toronto, where a plane holding 80 passengers flipped on the runway and miraculously all 80 people on board survived. Now, this plane was flown by a subsidiary of Delta Airlines called Endeavour Air, and on their TikTok account, they pinned this video, which made the internet suspect that DEI was involved in the crash. Now, for context, this airline often brags about how it mans all female flights, from the pilots to the crew. Yes, they love to brag about all female flights.
Did somebody say slave?
This video did not age well. Did somebody say slay?
Did somebody say slave?
Oof. Now, when they say slay, were they talking about this?
Oh, fuck. Oh, fuck. Oh, no, 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 no.
Ouch.
Tower, you're seeing this airplane just crash into 2-3. Oh my god. Oh my.
Did somebody say slay?
When they say things like slay, are they saying it's time to slay our passengers? Because that's what it looks like.
Did somebody say slay?
Now, this crash happened 3 days ago, and the airline is still trying to hide who the pilots were from this flight. And as DC Drano says, and makes a very good point, if you're going to DEI, you better be able to back it up. So now, with the airline being suspiciously silent, the internet has done some digging, and we have found the name of the alleged pilot. Tribune.com just published this story. The name of the alleged pilot is none other than Kendall Swanson, a 26-year-old female pilot who was hired by the airline recently. And according to this article, Swanson, who was recently certified as an airline pilot on January 9th, 2025, had a relatively brief career in aviation. Rumors circulate that just a year ago, she was an instructor pilot for smaller propeller aircraft and had only recently been licensed to co-pilot a small jet before this crash. Damn. And another interesting fact from this article says the FAA Airman Certification Database confirms her ATP certification, but notes that Swanson does not meet the required aeronautical experience to serve as pilot in command. So yes, folks, it is looking like this airline crash was yet another DEI disaster.
Did somebody say slay?
But with every great DEI disaster comes great DEI memes, and this whole event did not disappoint. Our first meme comes courtesy of Satchasm, with the Endeavour Air post from 2022. bragging about their entire girl power flights with how it started and how it ended, completely upside down. Or this beam here with the Delta Airlines flight and the pilots upside down. Incredible. And this whole DEI disaster makes me think of a recent joke my friend Ben Bankus, a comedian from Toronto, made about female pilots.
Female pilots? How do you feel when you see that? You fear. You feel fear. Even women do. They see that and they're like, oh, fuck. And the female pilots, they're so into it, right? They like stand and look at all the passengers and like, it's like, get in that room, bitch. Figure this shit out. I'd rather a trans pilot than a female pilot. Because at least at one point, she knew how to fly.
Oh. What a punchline. Ben. Now, I just want to say, I don't think all female pilots are bad. I think DEI is the problem. Because when you hire people based on sex, gender, and all that other nonsense, it completely discredits those who actually got the job legitimately. Now everybody looks at a female pilot and asks themselves, was she hired because of diversity, equity, and inclusion? And I think that's not fair to the good female pilots. And before we end the segment on the DEI airlines, I want you guys to know that I'm flying home very soon. And just for those of you who are worried about my safety with all the crazy things in aviation happening recently, when I booked my ticket to come back home to Canada, I made sure that the airline had absolutely no DEI programs at all. I will never risk my life on a woke airline. So don't worry. Pleb is coming home safe. Now, enough with the DEI airline story. Let's move things over to Pierre Poilievre's press conference today, which was absolutely patriotic and completely based. And over at today's press conference, Pierre Poilievre did stay on that patriotic messaging, and funny enough, only took questions from independent media today as a giant middle finger to all the mainstream media. And in this press conference, Pierre Poilievre doubled down on his stance about deporting those who are in our country misbehaving. Watch this. Shout out to one of my favorite journalists, David Menzies at Rebel News, who got to ask this incredible question.
Poilievre, you recently said that any foreign nationals who are convicted of anti-Semitic crimes in Canada should be deported. Mm-hmm. But that is a very high bar. There have been very few arrests and very few prosecutions over the past 16 months. Indeed, according to police and prosecutors, the anti-Semitic encampments at universities were not crimes. Shouting for a new intifada and promoting genocide are not considered criminal. Question, would you be open to reviving Stephen Harper's ban on the glorification of terrorism?
Good question.
Thank you. We're going to be releasing our election platform once the writ is dropped and the election is called. So you'll have to wait until then for those sorts of final decisions and commitments. But what I've made clear is that we have to reverse the hate and division that has been unleashed in this country over the last 10 years. The radical woke agenda that Justin Trudeau instituted and that Mark Carney has said explicitly he wants to continue.
He did.
Has divided our people. He's broken people up into different ethnic, religious, cultural groups and turned them against each other. Liberals have deliberately divided community against community for electoral gain. And they have put in place an ideology that obsesses about every single possible ethnocultural division. And what is the result? A 251% increase in violent hate crime under this last decade of the Trudeau-Carney Liberals. So I will end that radical woke ideology. I will treat every single Canadian equally. We will cut off the funds that have gone to anti-Semitic groups and to other hate mongers. We will pass tough new laws that punish people who vandalize or attack places of worship. We will deport foreign nationals who are in this country that engage in violence or law-breaking of any kind, including anti-Semitic violence.
All right. He said it. Anybody as a guest in our country who misbehaves, breaks the law, is getting deported. Boom.
And we will ban every single terrorist group that's operating here. We'll find and deport all of the IRGC thugs. There are apparently 700 IRGC thugs who are in Canada today, operating with impunity, who are not citizens. They're spending the stolen money that they took from the Iranian people while they instigate divisions on our grounds in this country. They will be kicked out of this country. We're going to put our country first. And finally, our approach is going to be that we are all Canadians. Every Canadian will be Canadian first. We can come from anywhere in the world. You can have any religious background you want. At the end of the day, we need a common identity with a common loyalty that puts that flag above everything else.
It's baffling to me how people can immigrate here and start protesting in our streets about things that are happening in other countries. You guys know I like to travel, but I would never be protesting Trudeau and the Liberals in another country when I'm a guest there. It just makes absolutely no sense to me or to anyone who has any common sense. And in today's press conference, another important question was asked to Pierre Poilievre. Where does he stand on the Canadians who are booing the U.S. national anthem at NHL hockey games? And this is what he had to say. Sorry for the low audio on the reporter, but Pierre's audio is good.
Hello, Mr. Poilievre, Noah Jarvis to North. In response to the imposition of American tariffs by President Donald Trump, Canadians have taken to booing the American national anthem at sporting events. We saw this at the first Four Nations Face-Off event, which you attended. Some argue that the booing is justified, while others argue that it is disrespectful. So, at the next Four Nations Face-Off match and at future sporting events, should Canadians boo the American anthem or refrain from doing so?
I would focus on cheering on Canadians. I want Canadians to win. I enjoyed the game. Unfortunately, did not enjoy the outcome when I sat down with my little boy, Cruz. It was his first in-person hockey game, and my wife, Anna, was there. My retirement plan is for little Cruz to become an NHL hockey player, so we wanted to get him started early on that. I would just encourage everyone to remember that our disagreement is not with the American people, it's with the American president's unjustified threats of tariffs. And let's focus on building our own country up. You know, Mark Carney took his headquarters out of Canada. The media has been covering this up. The first thing he did after Trump won re-election was to take his headquarters, his corporate headquarters, and send it to New York. So he doesn't have to pay all the taxes that he and Mr. Trudeau have been imposing on business here in Canada. I will do the exact opposite of Carney. I will bring the jobs home to this country and put our country first. Thank you.
That's an all right answer. Over here on this channel, I've been reading your guys' comments, and the majority of you are absolutely disgusted with the Canadians who are booing the U.S. national anthem. And I wish Pierre Poilievre would have condemned that, but this answer isn't too bad either. And in our last clip here from the press conference, many on X recently have been circulating a rumor that Pierre Poilievre is not going to defund the CBC when he becomes prime minister. And in today's press conference, Pierre Poilievre put that rumor to bed and confirmed he is going to defund the CBC.
We have to cut waste and mismanagement in this country. After 10 years of the Carney-Trudeau Liberals, they've increased government spending by 80%. They've increased the debt by over 100%. And much of it has gone to waste. For example, almost nobody watches CBC television.
True.
They have among the worst ratings of any network.
True.
And yet Trudeau gives them billions more. We're going to cut wasteful spending, not just there, but across the government to bring down inflation, deficits, and taxes. That's common sense. Now let's bring it home.
So yes, folks, the CBC is getting defunded, but something else I found interesting from Pierre Poilievre's answer is he said that all government waste is going to get cut here in Canada. Sounds to me like Doge is on his way to save the Great White North. And yes, before we're done with this Pierre Poilievre press conference, I wanted to show you guys something from our state broadcaster CBC, because today they were broadcasting Pierre Poilievre's press conference, but as soon as a Liberal went live, they cut over to Pascal Saint-Onge. Look at this. This is why we got to defund the CBC.
So that he can artificially lower the deficits that people see reported. But that doesn't mean that Canadians won't have to pay the price. In fact,
They cut him off.
By Canadian tax.
Okay, well, we want to take you from Toronto to Ottawa. As you can see, Minister Pascal Saint-Onge of Canadian Heritage is speaking, and she is going to share her vision for the CBC. Let's listen in.
Why would they cut away from a Pierre Poilievre podcast press conference to an irrelevant minister like Pascal Saint-Onge? Do you guys see the bias here?
A new overall mandate for CBC Radio Canada, but before getting into the details, I would like to confirm that I will not be a candidate in the upcoming election.
Okay, so they cut off Pierre Poilievre for someone who's not even going to be a candidate in the next election. Are you kidding me? Defund the CBC immediately. All right, folks, we got 2 more quick stories to get through, so just bear with me. All right, I got an update here on the Liberal leadership race. Now, when they kicked out our boy Chandra Arya from the race, it appeared that all the Chandra fans were on their way to support Ruby. And I predicted that very day that she was going to get kicked out of the race because she said she wanted to deport all illegal immigrants. Well, the prophecy appears to have come true here, as the Liberal Party now are questioning Liberal leadership candidate Ruby Dahlia over possible interference from India. I told you guys there was no way the Liberals were going to allow her to stay in the race because, quite frankly, many conservatives like her, and many of us who have Liberal leadership memberships to vote in the upcoming race, well, we were going to vote for Ruby, so of course they were going to find a reason to disqualify her. Look, I'm not going to brag. That was the easiest prediction of all time because everyone knows the Liberals are corrupt as fuck. And our last story of the night is truly going to make your blood boil, as we have seen Palestine protests in our streets every single weekend since October 7th. And now, look at this. Per the Toronto Star here, apparently, Gazan families are suing the Canadian government for visa application delays. Can you believe the audacity on these people? We welcome them into Canada with open arms. It costs hundreds of thousands of dollars per family per year in benefits to welcome them to our country. They come here, they flood our streets with Palestine protests and Jewish hatred. And now, after everything we do for them, they have the audacity to sue the Canadian government because we're not allowing their relatives and their family to get here as fast as they want. Is there anything more entitled than this? Every single one of them needs to be deported. Anyone who's in this lawsuit, deported, GTFO of Canada. I told you folks that one would piss you off because it really pissed me off. All right, guys, that's a wrap here for today's show. But tell me in the comments down below, what did you guys think of Pierre Poilievre's press conference today? Also, are you guys surprised that the alleged pilot and this whole disaster at Toronto Pearson Airport had DEI involved in it? I want to hear your comments down below. If you want to support me and you are entertained by this video, the best way to do it is subscribe if you're not subscribed already, hit the like button, drop a comment, buy a membership. My name is The Pleb, and I'll see you guys at the next report. Peace.